I've always had really messed up teeth growing up, like truly bad. Because of that, and a few other reasons, I ended up getting my wisdom teeth removed way later than most people. Usually, folks have them out in high school or early college. But me? I didn't even book a consultation until after graduation. The whole process was rough. Definitely one of the most uncomfortable experiences I've ever had. I won't bore you with all the details, but there's something important you should know. For some reason, the pain stayed intense unless I took my medication every few hours. I came up with this routine where I'd wake myself up every 3 hours to take another pill, rotating between the two prescriptions my dentist gave me. It was exhausting, but it was the only way to manage the constant ache. Naturally, my sleep schedule completely fell apart. My body started adapting to these strange 3-hour sleep cycles. Even after I was better, I couldn't get back to normal. Honestly, that was the hardest part. The sleep, it just didn't feel right anymore. After a while, I didn't even feel like myself. One night, during that first recovery week, I woke up around 4 a.m. for my medication. But afterward, I couldn't fall back asleep. Maybe it was the lingering ache. Maybe it was the heat. My AC had stopped working, and my room felt like a furnace. After tossing and turning for 10 long minutes, I finally got up and cracked my bedroom window open. The warm night air helped a little, but not much. I lay there, eyes open, wishing I could drift off. That's when I heard it. A faint, scraping sound coming from outside my window. At first I thought it was nothing, just a regular outdoor noise I wasn't used to, since I rarely slept with the window open. But the longer I listened, the stranger it sounded. It wasn't random. It was steady, slow, scratchy, almost like something brushing across wood. The sound grew louder, and I realized it was coming from above me, from the roof. I figured it had to be an animal, maybe a raccoon, or something similar. We live near the woods, so that wouldn't be unusual. Still, I knew my dad wouldn't be happy if something started nesting in the attic again, so I decided to take a look. Half asleep, but running on pure adrenaline, I got out of bed and headed to the garage. I grabbed one of my dad's heavy-duty flashlights and stepped outside through the back door. My room's on the first floor near the rear of the house, where the roof line dips low, so that's where I started. I swept the flashlight beam across the shingles. Nothing. Sighing, I figured whatever it was had already moved. So I walked around to the side of the house, scanning the roof line again. Then, movement. Something shifted at the edge of my light. I turned the flashlight toward it, and my heart nearly stopped. It wasn't an animal. It was a person. A grown human figure stood motionless on my roof, caught perfectly in the beam of my light. I gasped, loudly. I couldn't help it. The figure jerked at the sound and began moving. Fast, too fast. They darted across the roof as if trying to escape the light, their movements stiff and unnatural as they scrambled toward the back of the house, toward my room. Instinct kicked in. Instead of running back inside, I sprinted around the house, calling for my dad. I wanted to cut them off. By the time I reached the backyard, the person was crouched near the edge of the roof, preparing to jump. "No way," I whispered. It didn't seem possible for someone to make that drop safely. But they did. They hit the ground hard, but somehow stood right back up. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen, my mind struggling to understand what I was seeing. Then they started running, straight toward me. Before I could react, they crashed into me, knocking me to the ground. Their hands grabbed at me wildly, trying to hold me down. I struggled, trying to push them off, but they were unbelievably strong, moving with strange, jerky motions that didn't seem human. I shouted for help, and seconds later, I heard the back door burst open. My dad came running out, yelling my name. He rushed forward and pulled the stranger off me, dragging them backward with everything he had. I stumbled to my feet just in time to see the person twist free of his grip. Instead of coming toward us again, they turned and sprinted toward the edge of the yard, vaulted over the fence, and disappeared into the woods behind our house. My dad and I stood there in shock, listening to the fading sound of footsteps in the distance. The rest of that night was a blur. My dad rushed me to the hospital to make sure I was okay. I was shaken and bruised, but nothing serious. The police couldn't do much. They said searching the woods in the dark would be nearly impossible. Their advice: install some cameras next time. Later, my dad found strange marks near the attic vents, deep scratches in the wood, like someone had been trying to pry their way in. It wasn't me or my dad who took it the hardest, though. It was my mum. She was terrified for weeks. She couldn't sleep without checking every lock in the house over and over. She's the one who finally had a full security system installed. Cameras, motion lights, alarms, everything. Even now, years later, I still don't have answers. Who that person was, why they came to our house, and how they even found us. Those questions have never left me. Our house, by the way, has a unique design. Well, I call it unique. Most people call it strange. Instead of a front porch, we have this long, narrow, covered hallway you walk through before reaching the actual front door. Imagine the entrance of a house pushed deeper inside the structure, like a short tunnel leading inward. That's what ours looks like. It's one of those architectural quirks people either find interesting or unsettling. And as you'll see, that hallway would soon become the center of something even more unnerving. My bedroom sits on the first floor, right next to that hallway leading to the front door. If I stand by my window, I can actually see anyone standing in that passage, but they'd have their back to me. As a kid, I used to peek through that window whenever someone rang the bell. It felt like my own secret viewfinder. Anyway, what I'm about to tell you happened just a few months ago, right at the start of summer. My parents had gone out of town for the week, and I decided to have my girlfriend, Anna, stay over for a few days. Normally my parents wouldn't have allowed that. They're pretty traditional. But what they didn't know wouldn't hurt them. They liked Anna anyway. She wasn't a stranger. The first night was calm. Movies, snacks, and a quiet evening. We went to bed early and spent the next morning relaxing by the pool. It was peaceful. The second night, that's when everything changed. It was around midnight. We were lying in bed, whispering and laughing. Just that sleepy, happy kind of conversation before drifting off. Then I heard it, a sound from outside. At first it was faint, like something being dragged. I told Anna to hold still, and I listened harder. The sound came from the direction of the driveway. It wasn't far away. After a few seconds, I recognized it. The sound of one of my dad's trash cans being moved. He'd left them by the garage earlier that day. My first thought was that some animal had gotten into them, a raccoon or maybe a stray dog looking for food. Still, hearing something moving around outside in the middle of the night, when you're home alone, Feels unnerving, especially in complete darkness. I whispered to Anna, "Stay here." I told her I was just going to check things out, maybe scare off whatever was out there. Then I quietly slipped out of bed, walked to the front door, and switched on the exterior lights. They didn't reach far, just the porch and part of the yard. The rest was still hidden in darkness. Cautiously, I opened the door and stepped outside, hoping my presence alone would be enough to scare off the intruder. I waited, listened, but nothing moved. Even the sound of the trash cans had stopped. I thought maybe the animal had run off, but I would have heard it. Still, I clicked on my phone flashlight and began walking toward the driveway, my steps quiet against the concrete. One of the trash cans was tipped over, its contents scattered across the ground. The others stood untouched. I sighed. "Great," I muttered, realizing I'd have to clean it up myself. I didn't see anything nearby, so I assumed whatever had caused the mess had already gone. I waved my light around the area, between the cars, behind the bins, along the fence. Nothing. Satisfied, I gathered the scattered trash, put everything back, and pushed the bins into the garage. Then I locked the door behind me and went back to bed. Anna was half asleep, her breathing slow and steady. I lay down quietly beside her, trying to relax. Within minutes, I drifted into that hazy state between wakefulness and dreams. That's when I heard it. Again. A faint tapping sound, metal against glass. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, some leftover noise from my dream. But the longer it went on, the clearer it became. Tap, 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 right outside the window. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My entire body went cold. It wasn't my imagination. The sound was real. No, wait. It wasn't inside the room. It was coming from just outside the window. Slowly, trying not to make a sound, I pushed myself up from the bed. My heartbeat felt like thunder in my chest. I crept toward the window and peeked through a tiny gap in the curtain. And that's when I saw it. A figure standing at the front door. Their back was to me, but I could see the outline clearly in the faint porch light. They were tapping, softly, rhythmically, on the glass near the doorknob. Tap, 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 like they expected someone to answer. But that didn't make sense. It was past midnight. The lights were off. Who would just stand there, tapping? I tried to focus, but the shadows made it impossible to see details. Then the figure began to move. They started turning around. Without thinking, I ducked below the window frame, heart pounding so loudly I could hear it echoing in my ears. Did they see me? I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But I had to. Finally, I gathered my courage, stood slowly, and pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. And I wish I hadn't. Right there, just inches from the glass, was a face, pale, expressionless. The skin looked strange, like light passing through wax. I gasped and stumbled backward, yanking the curtain shut. My heart was in my throat. I tripped onto the bed, shouting before I could stop myself. "Someone's outside!" Anna bolted upright, startled. I locked the bedroom door and grabbed my phone, dialing the police with shaking hands. They arrived about 10 minutes later. Anna and I stayed locked in the room until they called out that it was safe. The officers searched the entire house, checking every door and window. No signs of forced entry. Everything locked. Everything. Normal. That gave me a small sense of relief, but it didn't explain what I'd seen, who that person was, or how long they'd been standing there. They walked the perimeter of the property, flashlights sweeping through the yard, but found nothing. One of them said, "If you see anything again, call us right away." And then they left. The rest of the week passed quietly. No noises, no shadows, no visitors. When I told my parents, they weren't nearly as alarmed as I expected. We don't live in a bad area, so maybe that's why. They said it was probably someone passing through, maybe looking for help. At first, their calmness made me feel like I'd overreacted. But if that were true, I wouldn't still be hearing things, because for the past few nights, I've been waking up again to faint sounds outside my window. Not trash cans, not animals, different sounds, closer. My dad says he'll install cameras soon, but I can't shake the feeling. That person, the one with the pale face, wasn't just some random stranger, and deep down, I know that wasn't the last time I'll see them. What you're about to hear next is another experience, one that nearly broke me. It's something I still think about often, but I've managed to move past it, mostly. The story itself isn't long, so I'll get right into it. I'm a single guy, in my mid-30s, living alone in a small, one-story house. It's simple. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a living room, kitchen, dining area, and a tiny garage. Life's good. My job lets me work on my own schedule. No boss, no co-workers, no one to answer to. Freedom has always mattered to me, and I've built my life around it. That freedom does come with downsides, though. I've developed some bad habits, especially with sleep. I'm most awake at night, so I often work until sunrise and sleep through the day. It's just how I'm wired. One night I was working late, past 3 a.m. The house was quiet. I sat at my desk, focused on the screen, the only sound, the soft tapping of my keyboard. Then, suddenly, everything changed. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway toward my room. Then 3 or 4 loud, rapid knocks against my door. I jumped up so fast, I hit my desk. My heart was pounding. Imagine hearing that in your own home at 3 a.m. when you know you're alone. I stared at the door, waiting for it to open, but nothing happened. The sound stopped. Silence. No retreating steps. No voices. Nothing. It felt impossible, but I knew I hadn't imagined it. I stood there, completely still, my body frozen in place. Then, footsteps again, moving quickly back down the hall. That broke the spell. I grabbed the nearest thing on my desk, a bottle, and ran into the hallway yelling, hoping to scare off whoever was there. But the house was empty, every door and window still locked tight. I called the police. When they arrived, we searched together. But again, nothing. No signs of entry, no open windows, no tracks outside. One officer suggested I might have missed something, or that the sounds were echoes. I knew that wasn't true, but there was no proof otherwise. For the next week, I was a mess. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. My mind kept replaying the sound of those footsteps. Even now, I still wonder, how did someone walk through my home without leaving a trace? And if it wasn't a person, then what was it? That question still keeps me up at night.